Hi everyone, welcome to Outside Lane and oh boy, 2025.
You had a dream, you wanted better. You were sick of all the holes in your sweater.
Well, it's that time of the year, where we get to mention the absolute best that mainstream music had to offer. And let me tell you, this one was hard to make. And sadly, it's not for good reasons. If you've been watching my channel this year, or even been aware of the current state of mainstream music, you know why that is. I don't say this lightly, this has been the worst year for mainstream music since, I don't know, the late 2010s. And that is for one big reason. Almost nothing happens. What I mean by that is that this year's mainstream music was so absent of new things that it was kinda hard to define any sort of trends that really represented this year. Look, 2024 did have its issues, but pop music at least did feel eventful. I mean, at least for half a year. There was so much going on that it was legit a lot fun to look at every trend that was going on, either good or bad. Now for 2025, well, that didn't happen. Not only the biggest hits of 2024 lasted for the whole 2025 Billboard calendar year, they are some of the biggest hits of this year by default. It's gotten to the point where Billboard had to change its own rules so they could get Lose Control by Teddy Swims out of the Hot 100. Don't worry, us swimmers will not give up that easily. Now, there might be reasons for that. Okay, mostly assumptions, but at least from what I've seen. But from my perspective, the more obvious fronts are stuff like radio runs that seem to last forever, and the fact that we're still on the streaming era, which also does help with the stagnation of popular music, where the main playlists of most streaming services still keep recommending the same songs from a year prior, although that's not even top 5 worst things that streaming services have done for music. Especially knowing that Spotify pays their artists less than peanuts, encourages their audience to listen to AI music by adding them on playlists, and now also hosts ads for ICE. Which for the latter, I swear to God I'm not kidding. Fun stuff, isn't it? Also, maybe tack the fact that 2025 has been such a shit year on so many levels that maybe people just didn't want to check out new stuff. That one might be a big maybe, but it could have been a slight effect, you know? And the amount of new faces in music were not only mostly absent, most of them were not very good. By the way, my least favorite hit of the year is Blue Strips by Jesse Murph, so take that information as you will. And to end things off, the biggest events of the summer and fall were goddamn K-pop Demon Hunters and Taylor Swift's worst album to date. By the way, for the latter, I'm not excited to get for that, just so you know. Not to mention the amount of older songs becoming massive hits for some reason, which at this point happens every year, but somehow even more in 2025. Look, at the end of the day, it's not like all of this shit matters that much. An artist you like not having a hit isn't the end of the world. You should support that artist either way you can, and Billboard just happens to be a faulty system built in a false sense of meritocracy that is also not that difficult to game. But as someone whose main content and biggest fascination to talk about is mainstream music, yeah, it was a bit of a struggle. Thankfully, outside of it, there was a lot of good stuff, but that's for another day. So, let's talk about the rules for this list. If we were talking about 3 years ago, I would say that I'm using the Billboard year-end list for this year, or what's predicted to make it because I record these videos in early November. But not only I threw that rule out of the window in 2023 because Billboard is just terrible at their own rules, but if I was still using just the year-end list for this year, making this list would be borderline impossible. So I did extend what it's predicted to make an imaginary Billboard year-end 200, or just last long enough in the charts to make a certain impression of being a hit. So really, a very abstract view of what a mainstream hit is. And trust me, in some sections of this list, I am stretching the definition of that term. But honestly, I don't care. This year did not give us a lot, so I'll take whatever I can get. Anyways, let's begin this list.
Do you even notice when I watch you walk right out the door?
So usually, I go by the rule of 2 songs per artist on these types of top 10 lists. Maybe a third song in the honorable mention section, but that's it. Well, as you can see, I kinda had to throw that rule out of the window as well. So there's 3 songs by one artist here. But you know what? If there's one artist that does deserve to break that rule, well, it's this guy.
it's not enough. Few solid niggas left, but it's not enough. Few bitches that'll really step, but it's not enough.
If there was someone who had a great 2025, well, you can ask the amount of white pop boys about that, but Kendrick Lamar managed to be one of those names. With the release of GNX in November of last year, making the album one of the biggest of this year, plus with Not Like Us winning both Record and Song of the Year at the Grammys, and the Super Bowl halftime performance. Plus, with Drake's lawsuit to Kendrick and UMG because of that song being dropped by the jury, yeah, Kendrick absolutely dominated the conversation in 2025. And with GNX being an absolutely great album, it was absolutely gonna be featured on this list. With the first song we're talking about being pretty much the most acclaimed hit on the album, with that being TV Off. And well, it's not hard to see why, because it is absolutely a blast, as the first part of the song includes a very punchy West Coast inspired beat, as the sampled horns come from the 1968 hit MacArthur Park by Irish singer Richard Harris, which combines really well with the bouncy percussion, as Kendrick sounds as his hungriest in the whole album, where he can switch flows and voice tones like no one, which becomes pretty funny, especially with the humorous lines on the song. And then you get that switch up, which is very easily the most famous part of the song, as the massive chopped up horn line coming from the score of the 1979 movie The Black Hole, which is a funny choice in hindsight, as then the heavier bass and trap percussion follow suit, and Kendrick starts screaming Mustard's name, which has been memed to death at this point, which, I get it. It's an awesome moment, but also it's insanely hysterical. In a way, I can see this being called the spiritual successor to Not Like Us. More sound-wise, especially because Mustard produced this song, even if it's not the only song he produced on GNX, but whatever. And you can maybe squint some of the lines to be about Drake, but the lyrics, at least from what I understood, do feel like a different topic, as he asks his community to rise above the hypocrisy coming from within, to not let anyone take advantage of their own wealth and not seal into commodification. Fight for what you feel it's right, from what he comes from the soul, drawing from his own experiences. For example, that one funny line in the first part of the song, where he said that he cut his granny from his allowance, there is a reason for that, as he was seeing people who he knew since his childhood trying to take advantage of his camaraderie, instead of coming from an authentic place. And by sharing that message, he can incentivize more people to turn the TV off and stand for something. For as much as his beefs have been widely scrutinized, he feels that he can stand his own ground without that attention, and he wants everyone else to do the same. That is a big reason to the reference to the Jill Scott-Heron song The Revolution Wouldn't Be Televised. Look, there's always context that I won't get because obviously I don't know the full picture, but even outside of that, if there was a banger that ruled through late 2024 and this year as well, this was one of them. Not Like Us might have been the victory lap, but this one felt much sweeter at the end. So yeah, it deserves a spot on this list.
It's crazy, scary, spooky, hilarious. Crazy, scary, spooky, hilarious.
Sitting in the moment, but the tears are no longer in flow.
Well, still speaking of the Super Bowl halftime show, what if we talk about the future performer of that show? Because he also managed to be another name who had a great 2025. So Bad Bunny decided to open this year's music release calendar with a huge bang, with his latest album Debí Tirar Más Fotos, which I would consider to be the best album he's made, at least from the ones I've heard. And from its quality and instant success, it should have been a sign of great things to come for this year, right? Oh, how naive I was. But hey, this is still a really damn good album, and honestly, Baile Inolvidable was always going to have a spot here, as it's probably one of the most fascinating and best songs Bad Bunny has ever made, as the intro opens with these massive synths and the horns, which not only leads to an immensely great atmosphere, but it also leads you to believe that you're gonna get a much straightforward song from Bad Bunny, maybe something along the synth pop route. And then, after a brief radio interlude that is narrated by the Puerto Rican movie director Jacobo Morales, it switches up to a salsa song. No other tricks or gimmicks, just a standard salsa song with the arrangement arrangements you expect. The horn section, in this case trumpets and trombones, the congas, maracas, and the pretty powerful backing vocals, that winds up to the 6-minute mark. And it never really gets old. Even if the song doesn't really do any other changes, it still becomes really fun. Looking into the credits of the song, I discovered that the instrumentation actually is provided by a pretty renowned public music school in Puerto Rico called Escuela Libre de Música Ernesto Ramos Antonini. By the way, if I did butcher the name, I'm so sorry, you can correct me in the comments. Which are also credited in other songs on the album, which honestly, I thought it was a really inspired choice, and the song really shows that talent. And for as straightforward as the song is, not only that transition is great, but there's also so much care put into it, as this song, and the whole album in general, is a huge tribute to Puerto Rican culture. I mean, I'm probably not one to talk because I'm not the most familiar with the genre, but that's honestly what it feels like, where Bad Bunny's more melancholic vocals can sound pretty nice under this instrumental. I mean, he can be a pretty good singer when he wants, and this tone especially works for what the song is about, as it's a post-breakup song where he reminisces about the best moments of this relationship, as he thought that she was gonna be the person who would be by his side for eternity. But that didn't happen, and while it is over, that relationship was so important to him that her shadow is gonna be lurking for a while. As Bad Bunny puts it, his unforgettable dance. Yeah, he hasn't moved on yet, at least in this song, but it is to show the passion he had for this relationship. Again, I'll probably won't have as much context for this song, even if I want to, so for this one, I would love to hear the comments about it, but at least in my opinion, this is a highlight coming from Bad Bunny's career, a song where you can clearly see how much he loves his culture, and the execution is just absolutely fantastic.
He laid back thinking that I'll never react, cause I'm hella cool on it back. I do the exact things that you do, at your back, tell you that I'm not my girls with the crew.
So this is one artist that got a massive 2024, but funnily enough, she didn't get any representation on my list videos last year, either hits or overall. But well, I get to change that because this year one of her older songs got viral on TikTok, and honestly, it deserves to be acknowledged.
I only do this party for you, only do this party for you, for you, for you. I was hoping you would come through.
God, looking back to it, the whole brat phenomenon doesn't really feel real. Many people who aren't that online might have missed it completely, but because I am me, a Gen Zer who's far too chronically online for his own good, I witnessed most of the bullshit that happened. Some of it that I really don't want to ever remember. But the funny thing about Brat, at least to me, is that none of it got any representation on any of my best lists. And it's not even because I dislike the album or anything. I still think Brat is great, but none of the big singles from it really connected as much as I wanted. I mean, I never really cared for 360, and while I like Apple and the Guest remix, I don't think I would mention them in any of my lists, even if it was this year. Now, this all could have been prevented if Sympathy is a Knife actually became a hit, or if the Girl So Confusing remix lasted a bit longer in the Hot 100, but enough of that. Let's talk about the song that is actually here, Party For You, which was released in 2020 alongside with the album How I'm Feeling Now, but its origins are actually much older, as it was actually intended for the 2017 Pop 2 mixtape, but it wound up getting cut last minute. The funny thing is that the album itself is one that I don't even love that much. While How I'm Feeling Now is absolutely a good album, some of its bigger swerves to glitch pop or even hyperpop never really worked for me, and Party For You at first wasn't really one that stood out, but I actually remembered its existence in 2023, mostly because of the release of the movie Bottoms. You know, that comedy movie with Rachel Sennett and Ayo Edebiri about two lesbians that decide to create a self-defense group in high school to get laid. Great movie, by the way. If somehow you haven't watched it, you should check it out. And that song was featured in the soundtrack of the movie, which I did remember revisiting the song and liking it a fair bit on re-listen. But I didn't really get that much attention outside of being in the movie. Jump to 2025, and this song goes viral on TikTok during Charli XCX's Coachella performances and becomes a sleeper hit. And that's when the song truly grew on me. And God, it's legitimately a pretty pretty damn great song, as probably one of the slower cuts on the album, as that heavy bass alongside with the atmospheric synth and the big sounding percussion still wound up giving a big weight to the song, even if again, it's intended to be a slower cut. And I like Charli's performance here. A lot of people tend to complain about Charli's heavy reliance on Melodyne when she is absolutely capable to sing, but I think it works here, especially to sell a lot of the vulnerability portrayed in the writing, as she throws a party for a person she wants to connect deeper, which is kind of a ridiculous premise, and in 2020 this probably wouldn't be that relatable because, you know. But there's honestly something that I find very relatable in the lyrics, especially the feeling of wanting to connect with someone on a deeper level, maybe even doing big gestures to show that intention, but it isn't reciprocated. It's yearning all the way through, and it honestly really works. But if I had to pick my favorite moments from this song, are the crescendoing synths in the second chorus and bridge that really sound amazing, and the muffled vocals on the bridge as the instrumental quiets itself down, where it really shows the desperation of truly wanting to connect with that person. I mean, I guess these aren't really big details of the song, but they are strong enough to make the song even more special. And at the end, you wind up with a pretty terrific ballad that, against all odds, not only became a fan favorite, but also an out-of-nowhere sleeper hit, which honestly makes me really happy. Still wouldn't call it the best song on the album. It forever wound up becoming the sleeper hit that would have easily been on the top 5 of this list, but still, it's excellent nonetheless. I guess this is grounds for celebration indeed.
Boys will be boys, but the girls will too. And the girls should too. 'Cause what you're showing me.
So as we were talking about Kendrick Lamar a couple segments ago, how about we mention one of his more prolific and possibly best collaborators they've worked with? Well, you get this.
Roman numeral 7, babe, drop it like it's hot. If this world was mine, I'd take your dreams and make them multiply.
I mean, I feel like I'm kinda at a loss for words with this song. Not only because I've already talked about it far too many times, but honestly, even if a year has passed, this song still sounds as beautiful as the first time I heard it. This hasn't been the first time that Kendrick Lamar has tried to make an R&B song. Songs like Love and Die Hard very much prove that, but Lucifer might be one of his best, if not his best R&B song ever, as the very silky beat that samples Luther Vandross and Cheryl Lynn's cover If This World Was Mine, no wonder the song is called Lucifer, originally being a duet by Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell, as the gentle keys and strings as well as the bass and the 808s create such a lush atmosphere that very much fits for a love song. I also love how the sample is used, especially as the title line of that cover ends the chorus, which, while it is a small detail, I thought it was a very smart one, and both artists here truly have bundles of chemistry to really amp the romance displayed on this song. Their harmonies on the choruses and bridge are just splendid, and this comes from someone who isn't that big of a fan of Kendrick's vocals. I mean, look at a song like Love, even if I do like that song, but in unison, they sound great. And you could say that the writing isn't exactly the deepest, at least compared with the rest of GNX, but what I like about them is the characters' devotion to make their own world a better place. That real love and connection they would latch on to so that all pain and sorrow can be erased from their own world, which makes it believable coming from SZA and Kendrick's performance in this song. On my summer ranking, I called this a perfect Valentine's Day song, and honestly, I do still stand by that. Especially with the intense love portrayed here, which is why I never really got sick of this song. Not just because of how chill and beautiful it sounds, but because I just love the core basis of the song. So yeah, absolutely angelic song that felt like a huge gleam of hope this year. Well, at least for me. I don't know what to tell you, this song just makes me happy, okay?
If this world were mine.
You see me, I see you.
Look, it's more Kendrick, okay?
Woke up looking for the broccoli. Hot key, keep a horn on me. That could my seat. IP ownership, the blueprint is by me.
Okay, I swear to God, this is the last Kendrick Lamar song. After this, no more. But can you blame me? GNX just has a big floor of quality when it comes to singles, and Squabble Up has been one I've been wanting to mention for a while. And God, this is an absolute banger. Being teased during the beginning of the Not Like Us music video last year, Squabble Up feels more inspired in the bounce genre, with a little bit of G-Funk influences, especially around the synths in the song, with a pretty tight groove coming from that sick-ass synth bass line and the percussion. Like seriously, if there is one reason this song is higher than both Loofer and TV Off, it's because of that bass line. It sounds like the kind of bass that you would hear in an acid house song, and I've always been a sucker for those, as it also samples the song When I Hear Music by Debbie Deb, as Kendrick Lamar delivers one of the most boastful but also playful performances on the album, while still delivering a myriad of flows and also be extremely funny. I especially like that by the third verse, Kendrick's delivery gets a lot more intense, which just makes it even crazier. It's so much fun. Where the crux of it is being sort of a flex song. At least he does have a bit more of a celebratory tone, where he has gotten this far into the game and gained so much wealth that he can hit his own opponents with precision without doing that much effort. He also sends pot shots to those who prefer to save their own skin from going to jail instead of standing for their own beliefs, and some pot shots to Drake. Although he doesn't mention his name outright, if you get the context to some of those lines, the assumption will be there. Look, I'm not gonna analyze all of the potential subliminal messages of this song because I probably don't have all of the context for it, again, and there is a lot of people who are probably a lot more qualified than I am to do it, but honestly, this is here because it's just so much fun. I mean, that synth bass alone sold the song for me. Still not the best song from GNX. I still prefer Reincarnated or Heart Part 6 or even Gloria, but still, it kicks plenty of ass.
Squabble up, squabble up, squabble up, squabble up.
So, for the next song, it wound up being a bit of an underwhelming return for them. Well, at least chart-wise. Debuted super high in the Hot 100, but faded out pretty quickly, which tends to happen sometimes. Plenty of pop stars have pushed singles that wound up not doing very well, especially in a year as uneventful as this one was. But in this case, man, what a shame, because this song deserved so much better.
I saw your green hair, beauty mark next to your mouth there on the subway.
You know, as disappointing as it is to see this song falling off the charts so quickly, I'm not exactly that shocked. I kinda expected it to happen, especially with the release of The Giver, which the same thing happened, which again, shame. I like that song as well, even if it's not one of her best songs, but at the same time, I don't even think that Chappell Roan wants that attention that much. For as big of a breakthrough she got in 2024, the amount of headaches that she got herself into, pretty much most of them unfairly, would very much lead anyone to want to leave the mainstream for good. And she has released that she's not gonna release another album for a long time, which honestly, I do understand. Yeah, I guess it's frustrating, but if you want to be a fan of an artist, you also have to understand that they are not machines. Everything has its time, and if that's how much time she needs, then so be it. It's not like she's inactive or something. Again, she released this song recently, and I'm glad she did it, because with this single, it shows that she hasn't lost any step, because this is terrific, as it being another well-executed ballad from her with some pretty interesting influences, as it feels very inspired in genres like dream pop and even jangle pop, especially with the main guitar tones and the drum kits. I could see this coming from Maisie Starr or even the Cranberries, or if we're talking about more modern bands, Always, which is a compliment for me. I like all these bands. The difference here is that Chappell Roan is such an expressive singer and presence that she can make it her own thing, plus with a great groove coming from the bass line, the string touches, and the vocal overdubs on this song, and yeah, this just becomes an absolutely stunning instrumental. As for this post-breakup song, where she's trying to move on from this breakup, although badly, because pretty much everything still reminds her of her ex, either her green hair or the perfume she used to wear, those memories almost give her a mental breakdown, as she waits for the day where that looming shadow disappears and the feelings also leave, unlike her ex, who apparently has managed to move on pretty well. I can say that I find the "I'm moving to Saskatchewan" line pretty funny, as in the context of the song is because she promised that if those feelings didn't leave, she would leave to someone far away from New York City, which obviously makes sense. I just found Saskatchewan to be a very random place. But if I had to pick my favorite part, yeah, I think you might know. It is that bridge. Not only because Chappell Roan sounds incredible, but also I just love the line, "She's got away, she got away." It's a pretty smart line, as a reference to Billy Joel's song from his 1971 debut album. No wonder this song is also inspired in New York, which then twists the meaning into a more melancholic tone, as a way to make this breakup feel more tragic, and god, it is effective. Honestly, I would say that this one is improved by the performance. I would have already liked the instrumental, but Chappell Roan's performance is what truly puts it at a higher tier. God, she really knows how to make a ballad feel so heartbreaking, doesn't she? Hopefully, I might be wrong about this song not doing well, and somehow it makes the year-end list in 2026, but if it doesn't, well, at least you know where I stand on it. It is indeed fantastic.
She got away. Do you even notice that I don't even complain no more?
If there's one song on this list that will probably get some pushback, it's definitely going to be this song. Now in this case, it's less about the song and more of the artist involved, especially after some events that happened a few weeks after I recorded the top 20 fall ranking. And while I'm gonna say that I'm not exactly fond of the things I heard, you know what? Fuck it. I will stand by this pick because not only it is excellent, it stands tall as one of the best hits of this year. Honestly, the more I see about Sombr, I start understanding where the hate actually comes from. 20-year-old pop artist from New York who has a massive following on TikTok, with a father who's a very well-known event organizer, with a sound that feels like a pastiche of the pop rock sound of the early 2010s. And if this was 2014, he would have a massive following on Tumblr. See, this is the perfect guy for Stan Twitter to hate on, not just by giving the industry plant allegations, but also the Nepo baby allegations. Yeah, I threw a lot of chronically online information. This is your pause to touch grass now, I completely understand. Also, by the way, someone please give him a competent PR manager, but if I gotta be honest, while there were some breakthroughs in 2025 that I did like, Sombr does stand on that category, as he first debuted in the Hot 100 with the 2-pack single of Back to Friends and Undressed. And while I do like these songs, spoilers, one of those will be an honorable mention, but I'm not gonna tell you which one it is. But after the release of the Just Fine single of We Never Dated, which went nowhere, 12 to 12 was released, which instantly blew my mind. I mean, yeah, sure, he had potential, but I didn't really know he had this. Like, on sound and production alone, this would have been here, as this soaring dance rock banger with slight twinges of new wave, with a groove that is beyond catchy, as well as that main piano line, the fuzzy guitars that give it a heavier edge that is welcome, the surprisingly layered percussion that features the main drum kits and some bongos that are more at the low end, the guitar licks in the post-chorus that were also featured in a song like Undressed that fits so well, the very pretty string section and some synth flourishes in the final chorus that are just terrific. Like seriously, on sound alone, this would have been very high. And then you get to Sombr's vocals. I have seen some of his performances in some places, and honestly, he doesn't sound very good live, but at least on studio, they did a pretty good job at hiding his weaknesses, as the reverb and vocal distortion is very well placed in his vocals, and the vocal harmonies are just legitimately splendid. Plus, he does try to sell the emotions conveyed in the song, and it doesn't sound half bad, especially with the balance between his falsetto and the more angrier tones of the vocals. One thing that the song excels at is striking a balance between vulnerability and anger in pretty much every metric possible, and I have said plenty of times that the lyrics do tend to be the weakest part of his music, and in this case, it is not the exception, but honestly, I am more willing to defend it, not just by how big the instrumental sounds, but you do get a bit more of context in the lyrics that makes him slightly more understandable. He might have either taken the relationship too seriously when he probably wasn't to that level, or potentially there was a spark there, but he's just probably too late to shoot his shot again. The bigger emotion on the lyrics of the song seemed to be confusion, and I do think it works pretty well, but if there's one thing that finally made me convinced that this song was that good, it was the bridge, which feels like the complete climax that the song was selling from the beginning, especially as it ends with the percussion picking up a faster rhythm, and Sombr's belting that combined with pretty much everything else sounds like a fucking rush. Quite frankly, one of the best bridges of the year. I'm not exaggerating. Look, I'm not gonna try to convince anyone that you should instantly seek out Sombr's music or anything. It's not like he's making any favors for that, but I gotta be honest with myself when it comes to these lists, and I do think that he has some legit great tunes, and 12 to 12 stands tall as the absolute best out of them. So yeah, either you like it or not, it is on this list.
I think you're dead, I never react, cause I'm hella cool. Run it back, I do the exact things that you do. With your back, tell you that I'm with my girls with the crew. While I'm rolling on a whole new crew.
Okay, with this one, I'm stretching the definition of hits. Like seriously. It peaked in the top 50, but it only lasted in the Hot 100 for 6 weeks. As I start bending my rules, I start having more fun with the picks I choose. And hell, if you want to speak of fun, well, that absolutely describes this song. And speaking of more artists that get into controversy constantly, well, Tyler the Creator. 2025 has been a very eventful year for Tyler, because he actually released an album not even a year before Chromacopia, which that album being Don't Tap the Glass, a departure from his more conceptual records for a more loose, dance-ready album that clocks at 28 minutes. It's very much all that, and it's not trying to be anything else. No thoughts, dancing shoes ready. Now, it's obvious that you can make bangers still be thoughtful and enlightened, but that still doesn't make the album bad. Actually, it's a very fun and enjoyable album with loads of bops. Sugar on My Tongue might be the biggest hit from the album, which is also a great song, but if I had to pick my favorite from that album, it has to be Ring Ring Ring. And that reason is honestly kind of a simple one. This song is so my fucking jam. If you don't know, I'm an absolute sucker for the Miami-based genre, and this song brings the absolute best elements from that genre. While you might think that the wonky bassline could be a bit of an odd choice, the moment the strings and the Miami bass inspired percussion hits, goddammit, I'm locked the fuck in. Plus, you add the G-Funk synth slattered around the choruses, and the telephone ring noises that hit at the exact moment it should. Fuck yeah, it's instantly a vibe. As a lot of the song relies on that infectious dance groove, but also Tyler the Creator's more confident delivery, as well as his more fragile falsetto, which, to be fair, his falsetto still isn't great, but he always manages to blend in with the instrumentals so well that you kinda don't care about it. If you think the repetitiveness of the chorus would be annoying, well, it's not at all. It's just a lot of fun, as the lyrics are mostly a standard hookup song, where he tries to get with someone, possibly an ex, where he knows that there isn't a big connection between them, potentially because of Tyler locking himself emotionally and not really letting her connect with him. But now, in the dance floor, he has the opportunity to do so, and even if it doesn't work, well, he at least gave his shot. Not exactly a deep concept, but it works pretty well. Honestly, there isn't a secret meaning on how this song works as much as it does. This just slaps beyond belief, and if there was a song that I absolutely needed to get me through this year, well, a lot of this list did, but this one also stands as one of them. As I said, the absolute best song on Don't Tap the Glass, it deserves its placement.
Pick up the phone, girl.
I'll be too sitting back.
And if you thought we were done with Chappell Roan, well...
I know you wanted me to stay, but I can't ignore the crazy visions of me in LA.
This is an interesting case. I probably should have added this one on my list last year. I mean, by my rules, it absolutely could have. It lasted much longer than 20 weeks, it hit the top 30, and if Billboard still had the tracking calendar that goes to November, this would have made the year-end list in 2024. So, what happened? Honestly, the song just wasn't there for me yet. I mean, yeah, I still thought it was a great song. I did give it a small mention last year before my number 1 pick, but I also thought that the song was gonna go recurrent at that time, so I didn't really bother to give it that much attention. But no, it didn't really happen. It it actually stayed in the Hot 100, and it rose even further after her Grammys appearance, plus with the great performance of this song on the awards show as well. And it's now Chappell Roan's biggest hit to date, which is still absolutely unthinkable. And around that time, the song actually wound up growing on me, so much to the point that it's actually where it is now. So hey, let's finally give this song the flowers it deserves. As many of you might know, this song is actually not new. In fact, this song was actually released in April of 2020, right before she left Atlantic Records, and in a way, you can kinda tell, especially in the fact that she was still trying to find her foot when it came to her sound, but was also starting to gain confidence when it came to her performance skills, as the song starts as a standard piano ballad, as her delivery starts pretty soft, but as the keys keep ascending, so does her vocal tone, as then the synths appear and the percussion fully locks in the chorus. That's where Chappell Roan lets out her vocals in a pretty impressive way that not only sounds great, but also makes sense context-wise, as the song talks about a fictional story of a woman who moved from a small town in Tennessee to LA to chase her own dreams, as she dances at a club. She knows that her mom will probably disapprove of that decision, but as the moment she lets her higher pitch out, it's the moment where she decides to say, screw it, and embrace who she really is, even if again, her family would probably disapprove of it. But even with all of that, she will still miss her family and friends back in Tennessee, and she won't forget them obviously, but she has to do what she thinks it's right. She needs to chase her own dreams, and you know what? I find that to be pretty sweet. Also, it's just great to see a guitar solo in a pop song, especially one that slaps as much ass as this one. Obviously, as I said before, this story is fictional, and the tone is very melodramatic. You can clearly tell that Chappell Roan is a theater kid, but there's a bit of reality to this situation, either by Chappell Roan's own experiences in moving to LA, or for anyone who dreams of something bigger, while not being afraid of who they really are. No shit, this has become a gay anthem, and for as much as plenty of countries keep regressing their views in society as general, seeing songs like this getting this big gives me at least some hope. Maybe just a little, but honestly, just enough to keep me slightly optimistic. So yeah, excellent song. I'm glad that it got as big as it did. Okay, so before we mention our number one pick, let's talk about some honorable mentions that didn't quite make the cut, but still are worth of praise. Let's start this honorable mention section with probably one of the biggest bangers of the year, the opening song from Bad Bunny's Debí Tirar Más Fotos, and my god, what a way to start, as it goes to more of the dembow genre, with the shuffling percussion, the bass touches, and all of the chopped horns, which gives it a little bit of salsa elements, as Bad Bunny delivers a pretty playful performance where he describes his own ventures in his summer vacation in New York, which is where the song takes its title from the sample of Un Verano en Nueva York by El Grande Combo de Puerto Rico. The song also feels like a direct declaration that he will bring Puerto Rican culture to the rest of the world. He will be a pop star in his own way. Honestly, I'm just happy that Bad Bunny is allowed to do what he wants, and is getting a lot of success with it. And when the music also kicks this much ass, that just makes it so much better.
Lit ass bitch, step on me, pop shit. Glass fuck, niggas wrong with that motion. I be in the cut.
Let's talk about the other Tyler the Creator album, which came out at the end of October, Chromacopia. Chromacopia is honestly a pretty interesting album, as the latest of his more conceptual records. While it was absolutely praised to hell and back, there was a slight pushback for it, mostly on the fact that it's not as good as his other conceptual records. And look, I won't say this is my favorite from them, it'll be hard to beat Flower Boy for me, but I think Chromacopia absolutely deserves its praise, especially in its moments of raw vulnerability. And to be fair, Sticky is not really that. This is the more straightforward crunk banger mixed with Tyler's more standard style of hip-hop. You can clearly tell that he is a massive fan of Pharrell's production style, especially in the percussion sets. I also like the features from both Glorilla, Sexy Red, and Lil Wayne, even if they have very short verses. But Tyler is clearly the standout here, especially as he switches through different voice tones that make it even funnier. I also like how the arrangement becomes bigger and more layered, especially as the horns appear and the percussion switches up at the last Tyler verse. Not my favorite outright banger on the album. Thought I Was Dead is a much better song, even if it won't be for everyone, it was absolutely for me, but it honestly still slaps a ton, and it does elevate the features, at least for the minimum time they have. So yeah, absolutely deserves a mention. I actually forgot to record something for this one segment, so this one took me a bit to grow on me, and it is still mostly familiar ground for Lady Gaga, but when it slaps this much, who gives a shit?
Remember old dude from 2019, nice clean nigga did me dirtier than laundry.
2025 has been a bit of a complicated year for Doechii. While she did get her big breakthrough, with multiple songs from her mixtape, Alligator Bites Never Heal, getting viral, and also winning the Grammy for Best Rap Album. By the way, Nissan Altima should have been bigger than it was. There was also a ton of headaches and insufferable discourse around her, which none of them were her fault, and shows some pretty questionable implications around the people who generated that discourse. But there was also the release of Anxiety, where the internet wound up begging for her to release the full version, and when she did release it, the internet turned on it in rapid succession for some stupid reason. Now, I never really cared for Anxiety as a song, mostly because I don't think he uses the sample that well, even if Doechii tries her hardest, but in my opinion, it is also far too overhated. Thankfully, she did get a win with Denial is a River, which is still a great song, with a pretty simple but still slick beat, with a nice synth horn line and a pretty solid groove, as the content of the song is a back and forth between Doechii and her therapist alter ego. Not exactly a new concept, but one that Doechii excels in spades, not just with her pretty energetic delivery, where she sells every change of emotion with precision, as in the first verse, set in 2019, she vents about a guy who cheated on her, on the second verse that jumps to 2021, showing how her career is going places fast, where she can't even process any of it, and the third verse, set in 2023, where she reaches her peak in success while her mental health keeps declining. And then for the final verse, after a funny back and forth between her therapist where she asks if she does drugs, she admits it. She does like the drugs and the party life, as more as a coping mechanism for her life that is a living hell, especially after her ex trashes her place, where she's in the cusp of exploding, but her therapist stops her and the song literally ends with breathing exercises. The way I described it, it sounds like a mess, but not only it's very organized and compact, it's also a ton of fun from start to finish. Thank God Doechii got a big win this year.
And oh, it's hard to say it, but I wish you were right here. Oh, it's hard to leave you when I get you everywhere.
So a couple segments ago, I did say that Sombr was one of the breakthroughs I did enjoy. Thankfully, he was not the only one. The situation is not that dire yet. There was also a slight breakthrough for Raven Lenae, coming from Chicago, who's been an up-and-coming name in her own sphere for at least a couple years. But with TikTok and later radio getting behind it, Love Me Not wound up becoming one of the biggest hits of this year, and it's not hard to see why, as he has a pretty slick instrumental with a gentle but also terrific groove, where the laid-back vibe is just so great. As for a song that questions Raven Lenae's own pursuit of love, contrasting between wanting this person's attention but also desiring her own space, I think it works. This has been one I've talked about plenty of times on my channel, and if you want me to go more in depth on them, you can check both of these videos out. But in conclusion, this is a pretty damn great R&B song coming from an artist that absolutely deserved that breakthrough. It's simple, but it's so effective on what it does. And speaking of the devil,
How can we go back to being friends when we just shared a bed?
this is the lesser great song coming from Sombr that I still wound up liking a lot as well, with an absolutely terrific instrumental that sets a somber atmosphere that is just so nice, and both choruses and bridge that are just so fucking great. The lyrics are still not the best, but honestly, I don't care. I just really like how this sounds. Still, I'm not here to convince anyone to get into Sombr's music, but just let me have this, okay? now for a breakthrough that technically happened last year, here we have the viral folk hit from New Jersey singer-songwriter Gigi Perez, and one of the best breakthroughs we've had this year, as it's a spare guitar ballad where the main melody doesn't really have that much progression melodically, but the other flourishes on the song is what makes it so good. As the guitar melody is filtered in a pretty nice way, Gigi Perez's baritone is pretty expressive, and her vocal overdubs are pretty splendid, especially in the final chorus, and the horns and keys flourishes gives the arrangement a lot more depth and power. In this case, a lot of the other elements outside of the guitar melody are doing the heavy lifting in this composition, but honestly, it works so well, especially to create a larger-than-life atmosphere, as to sell the intensity of the love she's experiencing. In this case, the song is about gay sex, and it doesn't beat around the bush with it. It's pretty explicit. Fuck yeah, the gays are winning for once. As it's a love that's so freeing that feels like divine salvation, where she wants to feel every moment of that passion, which is why the sailor metaphor makes sense, where they can love themselves through every high and low of their lives. So yeah, another song that stuck around through this year, either on the charts or in my mind, and I'm happy it did. It's legit great. And now for a band that I can technically say I was into before they really blew up, here we have one of the sleeper hits of the pop rock band, the Marias, who've been a very well-known band for a while, as they blend plenty of genres like dream pop, sophistopop, and even a little bit of Latin pop, especially because the main vocalist, Maria Zardoya, is from Puerto Rico. Hell, the band has been featured in albums from both Bad Bunny and Tiny. Both songs they were in are great, by the way, but 2024 was the year that they saw their big breakthrough, especially with this song, which I've been wanting to talk about it for many months now, but I never really got the opportunity to do so because the song was always short from being in my selection. But don't get me wrong, I like this group. Their sophomore album Submarine, which this song comes from, is pretty damn great, but if you had to ask me my favorite picks from that album, I'm not sure if No One Noticed would be on that short list, especially with songs like Run Your Mouth or Love You Anyway or even I No Puedo. But as the year progressed, this song actually grew on me. If there's one thing that this song excels, is in capturing an atmosphere that feels like a complete dream, especially with that watery synth that leads the absolutely dreamy mix, as well as the gentle guitars and the nice groove. I especially like Maria Zardoya's vocals, not just by her gentle delivery, but with the reverb added to her vocals that give you a feeling of distance from the singer, which works in the context of the lyrics, as the song is about a long-distance relationship where she desperately craves for a bigger connection, as that person seems to be the only one that actually understands her and hears her out, even if it's just a virtual connection. But she wants more than just that. She wants to actually meet them in person and upgrade that relationship at a bigger level, as it leaves in the more ambiguous tone to whether it actually happened or not. This is a song that relies itself in atmosphere and vibes, but when those vibes work to make a lovely but also melancholic song, I'm not complaining in the slightest. The Maria's momentum do not seem to stop anytime soon, as they already have another song in the Hot 100, and well, I don't love that song in specific. Sienna is a nice song with a pretty tragic premise, but just didn't really work for me that much sound-wise. It's at least great to see a band actually do this well. So yeah, great little song.
Cause I'm too messy, and then I'm too fucking clean. You told me get a job, and you asked where the hell I've been.
So, what if I said that this was actually my last cut from the list? How would y'all react? Okay, my audience probably wouldn't care that much, but this is surprisingly a bit of a divisive song in some spaces. What matters to this channel is my opinion, and in my opinion, I think this one is really damn great. As a slow burn ballad with a spare instrumental that consists of a nice bass line, the cyclical guitar melody, the drum kit, and a couple synth tones as it gets progressively louder, as Lola Young's delivery gets angrier as she sees her partner complaining about every single thing she does, where every time she decides to appease him and change any trait of her personality, it just doesn't work. The line, 1,000 people I could be for you and you hate the fucking lot, is just an absolutely striking one, which makes her even more upset because he's also a hypocrite, as he complains about her drinking habits while he smokes weed to help with his sleep. And yes, she's not exactly perfect in this situation, and in this song at least, she should have probably broken up with him a long time ago. She's not trying to paint herself as perfect, she just wants someone to appreciate her for who she is. Plus, with Lola Young's expressive delivery, delivery and the guitar solo in the bridge, which transitions very well to the last chorus, and you get a terrific song out of it. I know this is probably not going to be for everyone, but it definitely struck a chord with me this year. I just hope that Lola Young is okay, especially with the latest news surrounding her indefinite hiatus.
You say too late to start, got your heart in a handle. I don't believe any of it.
Okay, this was technically a minor hit this year, and maybe I could have added into the list, and if I did, trust me, it would have been my number one easily, but at the same time, come on, this song is 20 years old, I don't think it would be fair to put it here. I mean, it's obviously a classic, coming from still a fairly underrated artist with so much influence in pop music and beyond. If I had a nickel for every rap song that samples Imogen Heap, I probably would have been the richest person alive. That also comes from one of the best albums of the 2000s. And somehow, it's not even the best song on the album. Call Me When Ginnarin Go becomes a hit, okay? But hey, if this is how finally she gets the recognition she deserves, at least mainstream-wise, then so be it. So, choosing my number one pick this year was honestly not that difficult of a task. I had one planned for this list at least for a while now, which is kind of funny because when the song was released, I was actually not too keen on it. I mean, I thought it was good, but it just wasn't there for me yet. But one day, it just kinda connected. And when that happened, frankly, there was nothing else that was gonna top this list.
She said that I make expressions like
Yeah, I don't think this will be a surprise for anyone. This has been one of the most acclaimed songs from Chromacopia, and there is a reason why. But even if that's true, it's also true that I didn't love the song from the beginning. I mean, when I did hear it for the first time, I thought it was good, close to great even, but it just didn't really click with me yet. But when it did click, as I said, I knew it was gonna be my number one. And there's plenty of reasons for it, as the song being a piano ballad with neo-soul elements, where Tyler gets on his falsetto. It's something he has done before, and he always tends to knock it out of the park. I like the guitars, the gentle percussion, and all of the harmonies are very much excellent. But the main reason it didn't really work for me at first was the falsetto, especially when it's at the very front of the mix, and also the main focus of the song. But it did eventually grow on me, especially because thematic-wise, it does make sense, as it shows Tyler at his most vulnerable and insecure, which is where we get to the lyrics and also the big reason why it clicked the way it did. This song, as to put it bluntly, the song is about Tyler's rocky relationship with his father, which from what we know, his father wasn't there for him on his childhood, which has been mentioned on other songs of his, which also reflects in his relationship with his own mother, who he still sees a lot of resemblance to his father, so he wonders how much he really does look like him, because even if everything worked out for him even without the presence of his father, that insecurity is still there and it's probably not going, because for him, it feels like he's chasing the ghost of someone he never really knew. Throughout the song and the whole album, you hear voice memos of his mother, giving him advice about multiple things. And in this song, you hear in the beginning, pointing out her resemblance to his father, as it feels like it's a conversation they're actually having. And as Tyler asks her to know exactly what happened, she does. At the outro, she apologizes to Tyler for everything, as she might have been the reason as to why his father left, even if by her words, he wanted to be more present in his life. Obviously, it's a complicated situation that probably no one outside of Tyler and his parents will know the full picture, and that is fine. But at least in this song, I do at least find that moment to be pretty sweet. But if there's one moment that convinced me to put the song at the top, well, it was that bridge. Not just by the arrangement, as the massive synth and the key flourishes sound amazing, not just by Lola Young going absolutely insane on the backing vocals, but it also feels like that moment where Tyler is finally going to ask the dreaded question. He's been waiting for so long and he wants to end it. He wants the bitter truth, and by amping up the intensity, it really sells his urgency. Look, I'm not gonna say I can relate to Tyler's situation, but there's still something about this song that felt so human about it, even if we only know what Tyler is choosing to write. So honestly, yeah, I think this one deserves to be here. Might have taken a bit to really grow on me, but once it did, there was nothing else that was gonna top it. Like Him by Tyler the Creator featuring Lola Young, the best hit song of 2025. well, that was the video. I hope you enjoyed it, honestly. Before I end this video, I just want to say, for everyone that has stuck around, thank you so much. It's been 5 years since I've been doing this channel, and honestly, I have no idea what's going to be the future of this channel. Hopefully, I get to release more stuff soon. I have no idea, but I just want to thank everyone who has somehow stuck around. I know I have made some promises that wound up never happening, which is obviously my fault and I don't really have that much of an excuse for it. Anyways, hopefully I get to release the next Songs I Love video soon, and there's gonna be the top 50 best songs of 2025 that I'm legitimately so excited to do because there's just so much great stuff. And that's pretty much it. Subscribe to my channel, follow me on my social media, also vote for episode 4 of Songs I Love, which is already available. It's gonna go until probably the end of January, honestly. And that is it. I hope I see y'all soon.